The miracle of the loaves and fishes, Jesus feeds the 5,000. In John 6, one of the most extraordinary miracles of Jesus' ministry unfolds, the feeding of the 5,000. A vast crowd had followed him into a remote place, drawn not only by his teachings and healing, but also by the hope and reassurance he brought to hearts heavy with doubt, fear, and hunger. Families had traveled far, children clinging to their parents, men weary from labor, and women anxious about daily survival. The disciples looked at the sea of faces, realizing the impossibility of feeding so many. Then Jesus asked a question that would change everything. "How many loaves do you have?" The disciples answered honestly, 5 loaves and 2 small fish. To human eyes, this seemed hopelessly insufficient. But Jesus was about to show that no offering is too small when placed in God's hands. Jesus took the loaves and fish, lifted his eyes to heaven, and gave thanks. He broke the bread and fish and began distributing them through his disciples. As the disciples passed out the food, something incredible happened. What was little became enough for everyone. Thousands ate until they were satisfied, and afterwards 12 baskets of leftovers were collected. This was not just a miracle of feeding hungry bodies, it was a profound lesson in faith, trust, and the incredible power of God to multiply even the smallest offerings. Even our tiniest contributions, our time, our talents, our care, can produce immeasurable results when surrendered to God. This story reminds us that God can take what seems insignificant and transform it into abundance beyond measure. Like and subscribe our Yahweh Stories, Prayer 44 to see more stories where faith turns the impossible into reality, and learn how you can apply these lessons in your life today. The disciples' involvement highlights an essential truth. God often works through people. Faith is not passive, it requires action. The disciples had to take what little they had and share it with others, trusting that God would provide. This teaches us that our acts of service, even when they seem small or inadequate, can become instruments of God's power. It's a reminder that miracles are often collaborative. God works through our hands, hearts, and willingness to participate. Obedience, humility, and generosity are the channels through which divine provision flows. The 12 baskets of leftovers carry symbolic meaning. They represent God's overflowing provision, and the truth that nothing given in faith is ever wasted. A few loaves and fish fed thousands, showing that God's abundance is limitless. Jesus' compassion addressed both the physical and spiritual needs of the crowd. He saw each person fully, their hunger, their fatigue, their longing for hope and guidance, and he provided abundantly. This teaches us that God sees us completely, even when we feel overlooked or insufficient, and he can provide for us in ways that exceed our expectations. Beyond the immediate miracle, the story inspires hope and action for us today. It reminds us that faith combined with generosity transforms scarcity into abundance. 5 loaves and 2 fish may have seemed insignificant, yet they became enough to feed thousands. Similarly, every act of faith, every moment of kindness or offering of our gifts can have a far-reaching impact. Miracles are not only supernatural events, they are demonstrations of God's care, love, and power, working through ordinary people to bless others. The feeding of the 5,000 continues to inspire because it shows that God's provision is limitless and that we are called to participate. Faith, generosity, and compassion can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Let this story encourage you to trust God with your own offerings, to serve others, and to step forward in faith, knowing that what seems small in your hands can become more than enough in His. And if you want to witness more stories where faith creates the impossible, like and subscribe to Yahweh Stories 44 and join us to discover the miraculous, inspiring, and life-changing truths of God's Word for yourself.